What the Zionists did was, in the wake of the First World War, the Treaty of Versailles, to break up the Ottoman Islamic Empire and to bring some territories under French control and some under British. So Egypt went to Britain, and Jordan went to Britain, and Iraq went to Britain. That's a large part of it. But Lebanon went to France, and Syria went to France. And it was the French government, the French Zionists, who in the 1960s, I believe, brought the Assad family to power, and the Alawi, who are a small sect, breakaway sect from the Shia, who, if I'm wrong, please correct me, believe that Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu is divine, which is nonsense, this is what they believe. Yet this breakaway sect, which constitute about 12% of the population, seized his power in a military coup d'etat supported by France, and Hafiz al-Assad becomes the ruler. And Hafiz al-Assad imposes upon Syria's Muslims, Sunni Muslims, the same kind of oppression, biting oppression, that was visited upon the people of Tunisia, the people of Egypt, by Hosni Mubarak, by Zainul Abidin. And when the Sunni Muslims of Syria rose up in revolt against Hafiz al-Assad, he slaughtered, I think, 10,000 to 20,000 people in order to maintain his rule. So the Alawi government in Syria lacks moral authority, lacks religious authority, lacks even democratic credentials to rule over Syria. But nobody could remove them. No. Because the Zionists supported them. The Zionists kept them there until it was time when the Zionists no longer needed them to remove them. And so the same kind of insurrection is now taking place in Syria. And we hear the same stories about how Bashar al-Assad is such a dictator. Of course, we know he's a dictator. What's new? Like Gaddafi was a dictator. Of course we know he's a dictator. What's new? What's new? We know all these years. All these years we knew. But who kept them there all the time? The Zionists. And so now the insurrection is taking place in Syria. But Russia has learned a lesson. And China has learned a lesson. Syria doesn't have oil. Libya has oil. But Syria has a naval port, which is a Russian naval port. And it is the only naval port that Russia has in the whole Mediterranean, in Syria. So if the Zionists take over Syria, as they have taken over Libya, that's goodbye to Russia as a Mediterranean naval power. You lose your naval power. Not only that, the Zionists believe that the road to Tehran lies through Damascus. Because Syria and Iran are firm allies of each other. And if your target is Iran, then it makes sense to get rid of Iran's firm ally in Syria. And that's why the struggle is now being waged. The Turkish armed forces are playing the same role in Syria that the Egyptian armed forces played in Libya. The Turkish armed forces are bringing the weapons into Syria and sending the men, arming them with Zionist weapons and Zionist US dollars. And these foolish, that's the kindest word I could think of, these foolish Ikhwan warriors, not understanding that they're playing into the hands of the Zionists, are waging this do-or-die effort to bring down the regime. Our response is, if you want to bring down a dictator, someone who is oppressing you, someone who has no moral or religious right or even democratic right to rule over you, you have the right to wage a struggle for liberation from oppression. We are not denying you that right. No. Because Allah says in the Quran in Surah Al-Hajj, أُذِنَ لِلَّذِينَ يُقَاتَلُونَ بِأَنَّهُمْ ظُلِمُوا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى نَصْرِهِمْ لَقَدِيرٌ. Allah has given you permission to wage an armed struggle for liberation from oppression. You don't need a Security Council resolution. Allah has given you permission in the Quran, but Allah has prohibited you from friendship and alliance with the Zionists, Judeo-Christian alliance. And they are the ones who are the mastermind behind the insurrection in Syria. What's going to happen? We know what happened in Libya. The answer is, there's a word in English called attrition. You chip and you chip and you chip and you chip until eventually the tree will fall. So the Syrian regime cannot last forever. No. If you continue this infiltration of armed warriors into Syria constantly, to this side, to this side, to that side, supporting them with state-of-the-art weaponry and with all the money that they need, eventually the Syrian government will fall. And when that happens, Syria is going to become another Zionist-controlled state. And Russia will face a tremendous loss. This is why both Russia and China vetoed the recent Security Council resolution. Well then, what possible solution could there be if we are to prevent Syria or save Syria from becoming another Zionist-controlled state? There are those, maybe you have some sitting right here in this gathering, who are only too happy for Bashar Assad to go, and they don't care what comes after. We just want him to go. But we understand that the fall of the Bashar regime at this time will lead to the same result as in Libya. And so Syria will become another NATO state. What possible solution there can be? We have suggested that the Sunni majority Muslims of Syria, through their ulama, did the Prophet not say, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma barik lana fi shamina wa yamanina. O Allah, grant blessings for us in our Sham and our Yemen. The answer is that this majority Sunni Muslims of Syria, who are not willing to make friendship and alliance with the Zionists, they are the ones who must approach Russia. And they are the ones who must impress upon Russia that you can bring about regime change in Syria. And Bashar Assad probably will be only too happy to step down. And the Sunni regime will take over. which will maintain friendship and alliance with Russia and with Iran. In order for that to take place, and for the slaughter and the oppression to end, that's what we want. But they don't want that. No. They want Syria to become another Zionist state. That's what they want. In order for that to take place, you must have your ulama. And that's what we don't have today. I'm so sorry to say. We do not have the ulama of Islam who have the knowledge and the insight to be able to offer this kind of guidance.